I think this is interesting, but I'm not sure. How does April define licensing? What is licensing?
Right. So we're familiar with brand licensing, music licensing. I mean, we use images in our marketing. That's not the kind of licensing we're talking about. We're talking about licensing your content, which are your methods or your frameworks or your courses or your processes, even your pillars of understanding, whatever is the original intellectual property that you created, that you have gotten results for people in the past. That's how I define licensing.
What if I told you you could create a new revenue stream, not from a new offer, but a new buyer? And then what if I told you that this buyer could maybe pay somewhere of 8 to 10 times more than any of your other buyers? What if I told you you could streamline your business and get back more time and make more money? That is what we're going to be talking about today. My guest is here and she is the best in the game. And she realized around 2020 that a lot of people didn't know that this was even possible in business. She is here to blow your mind. And we're going to be talking about licensing your content, like your course, your IP, a framework for a new revenue stream. Yes, we are talking about licensing. And just before you even think, no, that couldn't be for me, y'all prepare your hearts. It absolutely will be. Someone is going to be paying you to rent your IP. Oh, yes. Yes, friends. Welcome to the show. April Beach, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting to talk about this.
Okay. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is because you're teaching people how this idea that that's not possible for me is actually very much possible. It is what you teach and coach people through. You have a ton of success stories. So the thing you're going to be asking people today is to just keep an open mind. And you're going to lay it out clearly for them. And then they're going to be able to say to themselves, it is possible for me.
That's exactly what we're going to do.
Okay. So as we get started, you're not prepared for this, but prepare your hearts because we're going to play a game called Licensing or Lies.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 6 questions over 60 seconds, and we want to get this party started off right. So we have a clock. We are going to be setting 60 seconds on this clock, and I'm going to set it right about here when we get this party started. So welcome to License or Lies. April Beach, are you ready to play?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay. 60 seconds starting now. True or false? You can license just a part of your course, like a module, a template, or a framework instead of the whole thing. Number 2, true or false? You need to get a lawyer to start licensing your IP.
Yes.
Number 3, should you wait until you're fully scaled your business before licensing your IP?
No.
Great. Why?
Yes. Okay. So fully scaled. Oh man, I'm going to break the quiz.
No, go.
Okay.
We got it.
Fully scaled. We're always going to continue scaling our business. Licensing is the next step after scaling your business. So you can license parts of it while you're still scaling.
True or false? If a company licenses your IP, they can sell it under their own brand without crediting.
Yes, true.
5, can you license the same piece of content to multiple buyers at once?
Yes.
6, is the biggest risk to licensing your content that people will steal your content?
No.
Why? We got 14 seconds.
Yes, because your contracts and how we release it and how we package it is very protective of you and your IP, and you get to set the rules.
She had 5 seconds to spare, y'all. I am so happy. Thank you. She killed it. Welcome to License or Lies. Game over. Now, see, we just fully indoctrinated you. Are you sweating?
I'm totally ready to go. I'm like, wait a minute, that was a trick question. The scale one was a trick question.
Okay, so now that you've been fully indoctrinated into the stress, chaos bucket that is building a business here and talking about it on the Jasmine Star Show, I want to talk first how we met, because the audience is very familiar that I don't bring people onto the show that I don't have a personal connection to. And so your name came to me by way of an early mastermind member. Her name is Jara Bean. Now, for those of y'all who are familiar, Jara's been on my podcast twice. Her most recent episode we recorded in Austin, and she was talking about her licensing experience. And she talked to us just about a component. Now, what the audience is familiar with is the story of an entrepreneur. So she came into my mastermind and she says, I want to do this course. And she hadn't started it. And so the course of our time together, she launches a course on video editing. And she launches it to her audience. And then by way of you has licensed it to Mac and Estee Lauder and universities across Australia. So how did Jera find you? And then to what capacity did you kind of like open her mind that she would be able to license a course where other people have video editing courses that they're not licensing? How did you make her believe that that was possible for her?
So Jera and her husband, Aaron, who's one of her partners, they're amazing, found me through my YouTube channel, actually. So I teach a lot on YouTube, and they got information. They started moving forward with licensing. They were able to start implementing some of the processes. And then when I started working with them, we really started putting more structure behind their licensing deals. So it was letting them know that, yes, you can do this, and you can do it beyond what you've already done. And here's how we do this. Here's how we protect you. Here's the pathway. Here's the roadmap to do that.
Now, was her level of success with licensing, was that average? Was it atypical?
Yeah, it's actually average. So usually across the board, what we have seen is clients' first licensing deals around $56,000. I mean, it can start as low as $5,000, it can go over $1 million. And so we're looking at that $50,000 to $100,000, $120,000 is very common. Businesses are used to paying for things like that. That is a price point that they are comfortable with, especially when you're licensing to larger corporations or universities. It's a very, very common investment, and they want to make that investment. So we think, oh man, we've sold a course or a training for a few thousand. But to these companies, it's, oh, what's $120,000 for us to improve all of this through you?
So I did a bit of due diligence. And so I had wrote also here $56,000 per licensing sale. And I wanted to pause there because I didn't want to brush over that. I want people to hear that they have something that somebody else finds valuable. Now, initially, I think it would have been easy for somebody like Jera. I am creating a video editing course and not necessarily think that a large corporation like Mac or Estee Lauder would find value. But for them, they wanted their makeup artist to be able to make video on social. So she saw this whole other channel that wasn't previously there for her. Have you experienced other people who are licensing their course or their IP and having in a different market that was unexpected?
Yes. So as a matter of fact, when we first have our courses or trainings in the coaching, consulting courses, membership space that we're used to being in, we build it for one audience. That's the end user. But when we're licensing, all of a sudden, it's no longer the end user that you're selling to. It is the buyer that actually distributes and needs that content for their teams or for their customers, for their clients. And so it's actually a different buyer. And all of a sudden you realize, wow, I can take the same content that I have built for the end user, and it's going to be valuable to communicate with somebody else to bring into their teams or for their customers.
Okay, that's so good. So one of the things that I wanted to go before we get into this, for somebody who's like, okay, I think this is interesting, but I'm not sure. How does April define licensing? What is licensing?
Right. So we're familiar with brand licensing, music licensing. I mean, we use images in our marketing. That's not the kind of licensing we're talking about. We're talking about licensing your content, which are your methods or your frameworks or your courses or your processes, even your pillars of understanding, whatever is the original intellectual property that you created, that you have gotten results for people in the past. That's how I define licensing. We're going to take content, but it's not just social content. It's intellectual property. It's training content, curriculum content. And when we do that, so that is the general definition of what we're taking and what we're releasing. We're actually renting it to other companies underneath set rules and guidelines that work well for them and work well for you. But when we do this, my definition goes beyond that. Why do we do this? And anything I think we need to ask, like, why are we doing this? Just because we can doesn't mean we should. We do this because by releasing your content, it helps your licensee, who's your new buyer. Remember, it's not necessarily the end user, it's the licensee. It helps that company deliver superior content, provide promises that maybe they couldn't have met those promises before. It helps them have greater results in their business. And then when they do that, then of course it's going to trickle down to the end user. So I call it the licensing trifecta. Licensing under this definition is amazing because it's great for you. You get to expand the reach of your work beyond what you could have before. I mean, these are audiences that you may not even known existed before. Right. You weren't even targeting them. And then the company gets an amazing piece of content or product or training, and then the end users are getting your genius.
So for somebody who's listening and they're telling themselves, what I do is not all that interesting or it's not all that unique, how do you overcome that primary objection.
Right. So actually the content that isn't all that unique, those are the ones that companies are used to buying first. They're looking for sales trainings, marketing trainings, communication trainings, any of those are the ones that are commonly purchased and sought after. But then the ones that are really unique, those are the little specks of gold, in the pan after we sift through in the river, and companies want those as well. They want to be different. They want to be the leader of their market. They want to fully understand that they can advance, whether it is a competitive advantage for their employees, for their teams, like in Jera's case. They wanted a competitive advantage for people that are on camera, for those businesses to elevate their brand. And so those really specific, unique trainings are just the best because they give you and that company a competitive advantage. So both are very valuable.
Okay, that's really, really, really good. So as we're here and we're just getting started on this journey, I want to start with 3 easy licensing offers. And you say the easiest place to start is 1, teaming up with your network, 2, competition into clients, and number 3, growing your team. Can you explain these one by one?
Yes.
Okay. So first one, teaming up with your network.
Yes. So you have amazing friends and you have an area of expertise that you are known for. Your friends love that you do that. I was actually just speaking to a potential client. I was having a conversation with her this week, and she was saying, hey, listen, all my friends are asking for my system. What does this look like? And so that's what we're talking about. So if you have a unique system or training in your network, your colleagues, the people in your mastermind, they're saying, hey, listen, we want to bring your training in to what we do and have it be part of our ecosystem. That is number 1. There are warm relationships. They trust you. And so these are actually what I feel fits into licensing quick sells is what I call them.
Can I jump in real quick before we move into the next point? And then extend this. So there's a woman in my mastermind now. Her name is Hallie, and she teaches feeding therapists. And she had a conversation with you, and you guys had brainstormed, and you had said, there's hospitals that want this content. And that was a whole revenue stream. And then you had said, we need to work fast because if we want this launched before the end of the year, there's hospitals that have money that they need to spend according to their budget. And she just saw multiple 6-figure revenue stream open literally less than 2 months before the year's end. Yeah. So has there ever been another person when we're talking about network where she didn't think that a hospital was her network? Is this common for people to come in and then you're sitting there and you're like, well, this, and that?
All the time. All the time. Actually, the thing I hear is people don't know what they don't know. It's always what they say. And I feel like, honestly, I'm serving a buffet. And I say, here are all the things that you didn't know. That's my favorite thing to do, is opening up these possibilities in these scenarios that people may have never thought of before.
I love that. So number 1, teaming up with your network. Now, the second easiest place to start with licensing would be to turn your competition into clients.
Yes, this is actually how I started licensing. So when I decided I didn't want to be selling my content B2C anymore, I thought, how can I, instead of just shutting it down, or I wasn't at a place in my business where I was ready to exit and wasn't interested in franchising. So I actually went to all of my competition, and let me explain the strategy after I explain generally what this is, because we have to be careful. This isn't for everybody. But I went to my competition. I said, hey, listen, do you want my systems and courses and frameworks and trainings? And what happened is they all jumped on it. It was amazing. And then I got to move back into a mentorship role, which I was originally in as a business strategist, and form more of a mastermind and actually create a community out of those businesses that were originally my competition that were all now my licensees.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It was amazing. It was probably one of my favorite business models I ever did. It was like back in 2008, and it was simple, and I don't want to say easy, but it was ease. And it felt right. So this has to feel right. So this is, yes, simple. It's one of those quick sells, but we don't ever want to obviously license to competition, something that you're continuing to sell yourself. So with licensing, the most important thing is understanding the long-term strategy before you move into anything and giving yourself permission to really think about what you want for your IP, even if it's just one piece of your IP or one course. And then we can say, okay, because of this, then that. And what is unique is it's not cookie cutter. Licensing is completely unique to every business, and they need to give themselves permission I don't think that we do that very often. There's always things we want to work on in our business, but actually give themselves permission to say, how far do I want this particular IP to reach, and who can I release it to in a way that's still going to look great for me 10, 15, 20 years down the road, because we can do that with licensing.
Okay, that's good. So the third easiest place to start to review, teaming up with your network. Number 2, competition to clients. And lastly, growing your team.
Yes. Okay. So if you have a certification program, there's so many amazing people out there that have a certification. You've already possibly certified in people in your methodology. Stacking licensing on top of that certification is the next flowing way to get into licensing in a very simple and quick way. Why wouldn't you then, after you've certified in your methods, release your SOPs and your systems and your frameworks and more of what could look like a business in a box to those individuals that have already been qualified? You already trust them. They've already gone through the steps to be a representative of your brand. And so licensing, stacking on top of certifications, is a very simple way to continue to grow, continue to increase your profit, and continue to help those people.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay, so people are sitting here and they're saying, yes, but how big can this thing get? Am I too small to start? So you had a client turn a $6,000 workshop into a $298,000 licensing training, and it took her a month to make it happen. Can you explain how that happened? Because that sounds crazy to me.
It was insane. Yes. Okay. Now, this is important to know. Licensing can close slow or close fast. When we have established relationships like this client did, she had an established relationship with this company, then they close very fast because that trust is there.
Good.
So in her case, she was a consultant, and she works with many different industries and, corporations. And she is known for coming in and teaching this one training, this $6,000 workshop, and just again and again and again. And one time she said, you know what, I'm done doing this. I want to do other things. She's, 55 years old. She's like, this is for the birds. I don't feel like doing this anymore. And so we sat down and created a package where she went back to the companies that she worked with, and she said, look, you're paying me to come in and teach this workshop, but what you really want is amazing long-term results and what we call an afterburn for your employees, because half of those employees couldn't make it. Half of those employees need that other support. So we actually created the offer on the backside, which we turned her workshop into ongoing materials and trainings, and she licensed it to them. I mean, it was a no-brainer for them. They said, well, absolutely. We didn't even know that was an option.
Wow.
And it's crazy. Even the largest companies don't even think necessarily to ask for this. They're used to licensing certain things like software, but if you have a relationship, it doesn't have to be a huge Fortune 500 company. It can be any organization that you have a relationship with, and they bring you in to teach their people. When you turn around and you say, hey, look, but guess what? Wouldn't it be amazing if this could be embedded into your ecosystem for your teams or for your clients ongoing? I want to do that for you.
So right now we hear this story, and that's incredible. Are there 3 things that somebody who's listening, because I think that the listener, I always feel like I am embodying the voice of the people who are watching and listening. And immediately what would come up with, like, I'm not sure this I would even be considered. And so generally I might know that you wouldn't say everybody and anybody can license. What are 3 main considerations? Like, if we're considering it, like 1, 2, and 3, and then if we answer yes to all of them, then we are on our way or in a good position to license.
Yes. Number 1 is, do you have a proven method or framework?
And how does one define proven?
Right. So you have given results to other people or other companies in the past, and these are predictable, transformational, measurable results. It doesn't have to be in the hundreds. We're not the licensing police. I don't go and say, well, you haven't done this enough times. I mean, this is for you to judge. But if you even have a service, let's say you have an audit process where you go in and you work with companies and you have a step-by-step way of going through processes. And at the end, there is a result, and that result gives the client a tangible, measurable outcome, then you are qualified to license. So that's number 1. You need to have a method or process or framework. It doesn't have to be built into a course. Most people say, hey, listen, I can't license until I build into a course. That's actually a mistake, which I'm happy to talk about as well. But having that method and framework that when we go to bed at night as leaders, maybe it's just me, but I lay there and I'm like, okay, did I do well? Did I do a good job? Did I deliver something that got other people results? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do here? If you can do that, and you know that other people are winning based on what you're teaching them, then you're qualified to license. Number two, you need to have a protection of your intellectual property. It has to be uniquely yours, meaning you can't take pieces of something that you learned somewhere else and just regurgitate it to license it. It's really important that this is unique IP to you. Now, the truth of the matter is most things that we build are based on things we learn from other people, right? So, and that's fine, but it needs to be uniquely yours. You can't have taken this from somebody else. And then the third thing, we want to make sure that your IP protection is in place. You want to have trademark protection and we want to have copyright protection.
Oh, okay, great. That was really good. So I'm going to repeat back what I heard. If I am to be considering licensing course, a framework, or my IP, I have to have a method or framework that's gotten results. Number two, that the IP is mine. It's my idea, my framework, my pillars. And then third is that there's trademark or copyright protection.
Correct.
If I have those three things, then I'm like, we can consider, oh, great. Okay. So can we talk about the cost of not licensing your IP?
Yes. When we don't license our IP, there are two different things that happen. First and foremost, or if you wait, if you say, I'm not really ready for this, I hear this all the time. April, I'm not ready. I just want to wait until next year, or we want to dive into this later. The thing is our content is only valuable and valid and up to date for a certain period of time. So imagine the systems and the content that you've created. We want to always keep that updated. So you're actually going to lose value in your content the longer you take to license it. So there's two different sides to the cost of not licensing. First of all, the IP itself, it loses value. And ideally, when we package up your training to release it, what we want to do is, I don't want you to have to update it. Unless it's AI or medical, then we build updating processes into that. But what's best for those of us that are licensing, and ideally the licensee, is giving them something that has longevity. And so we want to have that content have longevity. So as updated as possible, we want to get it out into the world. So that's one side of it. It's actually what's happening to the content itself. But then the other side of it, the cost of not licensing is significant, because when you license, you don't have marketing costs. We don't really deal with funnels. You don't have massive teams. It's so simple. So you're actually, if you want to move fully into licensing, if you're keeping the scaling side of your business, you're already going to have those costs anyway. But if you want to move fully into licensing, we actually can reduce your operational costs because you're no longer the one selling it. The marketing is very, very simple. We don't have an ad spend in most cases with most clients. And so you're actually spending money on your operational costs that when you move into a licensing model don't really exist. And then with that also, if you are a person in your space and you are in a really crowded red ocean and you want to be an elevated either thought leader or you already are a thought leader and you want to own a space, like this is the hill that you want to die on. You believe this is your IP, this is where you're going, and I want to be there. The fastest way you can do that is through licensing, even if you still have the B2C side of your business, because it's going to actually build the sales on the B2C side, even though those people have nothing to do with what you're licensing. Just by them knowing, hey, listen, Jasmine licensed her content to universities or to corporations or to organizations around the world. It just absolutely, it's like shooting a dolphin out of the ocean water into this blue ocean, and you own that thought leadership space, and nobody can compete with that.
So then what happens for somebody who's listening and they're like, okay, I might not have to have funnels, but what if I don't have relationships? So when I think of Hallie and when I think about Jara, there's two different journeys. Jara had relationships with Mac and Estee Lauder because she had spoken at their organization and events before. Now Hallie, who wants to go into hospitals, has never done that and doesn't necessarily have connections there. For somebody who's like, I think I know I want to go in this direction, but I don't have connections, what does one do to build that?
Right. So there are actually 4 different ways to move into sales or generate leads for licensing, both warm and cold. First one is organic. You know, it takes a long time, but we all want to do it because that's a relationship building. It's the sweat equity that we do across social. Licensing, by the way, is very LinkedIn heavy, which most people I talk to, they're like, what? I'm not spending any time on LinkedIn, which is an amazing opportunity for people because if your B2C audience follows you on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or wherever you are, we can build the licensing side of your audience on LinkedIn.
That's awesome.
So it's amazing. So first of all, organic, building relationships. Number two is actually through partners. So this goes very, very fast. This is one of the ways that many of our clients have closed deals and they don't know anybody in the companies they want to sell to. So we actually connect our clients, or people can do this on their own, with some sort of a consultant or a partner that already has a relationship with that company.
So good.
Similar to an affiliate, but a little bit different. It's not like we're sending a link and link sharing. It's going to be, hey, listen, this is April. She has this amazing program. And when you connect with, this actually happened with one of our clients. She sold her communication program to an international nonprofit. She had no relationships with them, but they had a consultant. And this consultant was hired to fix a problem. Her course happened to be the perfect solution to fix that problem. So in what the organization was already paying him for in his job, he connected with her and her course closed within 11 days.
Wow.
With this organization. So finding people, like we don't have to have all the relationships, but let's find the people that do.
Yep.
Right? And then the third way is like Jared did. It's through speaking or workshops, and Cheryl, the other client we were talking about. And these don't have to be huge, thousands of people keynote speaking.
No.
I mean, there can be 10 decision makers in a room. These are workshops, trainings, or just leadership talks, roundtables that you may be part of or hosting. And then with that, on the backside of that, the system is, and I'll just tell your audience, is how you do it. When you are booking a speaking engagement, make sure that you are booking a follow-up to that speaking engagement to discuss with them, and use the language, an afterburn, to make sure that your people are infusing what I taught them ongoing. You're going to schedule a meeting with them within 10 to 14 days, and it's going to be an afterburn, extra support type of meeting, at which point that is when we present the opportunity to continue to work with them and bring your training into their ecosystem if it hasn't been discussed before.
That's so good, April.
So cool.
Gosh,
it works every time. I mean, why would they say no?
I love that. Okay. So can you share a licensing story that blew your mind? Something that was a little unexpected that had these outsized results?
Yeah, I'll share two of them. One of the early licensing clients that I worked with, she's actually here in Balboa, down here. So it was great when I was here. And she was a stay-at-home mom. She had an expert sense of, how do I get through the grind? She knew the life that she wanted. She had recently gone through a divorce. She had what any of us would count on paper, zero experience. But she said, but I have really valuable life experience. So she created this program on resiliency that happened to come out before COVID and ended up licensing into multiple school districts here in Southern California, like Santa Ana school districts that went to their teachers.
Wow.
From nothing. Just from, I have gotten through this. I've literally physically picked myself up off the floor. And I know that what I have gone through can help other people. So that was one of them, and it was just mind-blowing. The second one is, I have a client she's actually in Canada, and she licensed her, she's a Buddhist sex therapist, and she licensed her training to the Canadian Police Force.
Okay, Drew, connect the dots for me.
Okay.
Like a Buddhist sex therapist who licensed to the Canadian Police Force.
Yes. So, and there are some things obviously I can't share about that, but in a nutshell, the police force was struggling with some over-aggression, and so they found value. See, these are the things. We might never know what another company is like, we need to fix this. These are the unique things. And they were dealing with aggression in their police force, and they said, we need to fix this. And they realized it was going to come through better marriages. So she's also a marriage therapist, and better intimacy in their lives, and they wouldn't deal with so much.
Get out! Oh my gosh, that story is gonna live rent free in my mind.
Oh
like
my
that
gosh.
licensing, like wow, okay, amazing. Because we start off the conversation by saying, some people will think that it's like so niche, and a Buddhist
pretty
sex
niche.
therapist, and then going into a completely different market that would be unexpected. Okay, so
we can talk about the marketing and sales ones too for your.
We could. Okay, let's give it like something more traditional.
Okay.
But to me, I'm like, if we can overcome the
Yeah.
really far out objections, is something closer to what my audience might be licensing. Let's do something a little bit more traditional then.
Okay. Sales systems.
Okay.
Great team out of Austin. Absolutely love these guys. They're amazing. They have a very systematic sales process. They license their sales process to a huge cruise line to help their people sell more cruises. So there you go. That's simple.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so were they selling this sales process B2C?
Yep. They're young and they're amazing, and they've been deep rooted. He's pretty well known, kind of started up with Tony Robbins, and he has this amazing selling process, and they still do that. So they sell it B2C all the time. But see, that's what's so cool. You can sell B2C, and then you can take that and you can license it into other industries as well. So this is because people ask me this all the time. It's a great time to talk about this. So you can continue to sell it yourself B2C and then extract it and sell it into other industries. And it doesn't even have to be the whole thing. It can just be parts of it that are turnkey. So let's say your B2C side of it, in this case, is very hands-on. They have a lot of live trainings and webinars and other things they do. Well, we can just take the course side of it and release it to a company, and you don't have to do any of that extra support. It's very turnkey.
Wow. So this guy got good at sales, created an offer to help other entrepreneurs or small business owners become good at sales, and then licensed the course side of it to a cruise line. Did they recreate the entirety of the content to change the nuance of language?
No, and that's the thing. I usually recommend, I want our clients finding audiences where we don't have to change a thing. Maybe there are a few things that we might edit a little bit, but that kind of goes back to what I was saying about content with longevity. We can find an audience in many cases where we can take the content and the training that you currently have and release it to that right audience with very minimal editing.
That's awesome.
You're right. So now I will say sometimes we might want to then stack something that is actually unique to that industry. So let's say it's a communication course. We could do the regular communication course, and then we would have the leader go in and say, okay, now add a little video that we're going to put on top of it. It's communications for hospitals or communications for teachers or whatever it is.
That's awesome.
Super cool.
Okay, great. Thank you for getting super granular. Now, we talked about really great stories, maybe unexpected. Not every single one of your clients has been a really great experience. Can you talk to me about somebody who had mismatched expectations coming in or just didn't find the right fit? What are things that we can be aware of that we don't carry things into the idea of licensing?
Yeah. So I think the biggest struggle with moving to licensing, first of all, is understanding that it's kind of like starting a new audience from scratch.
Oh, yeah.
And when I deal with many established businesses, because that's usually who's qualified to license, they don't love the feeling sometimes all of a sudden of going, oh, wow, I don't have a list. I don't have a corporate list. And so what does that really look like? So in one particular client's case, she came in and she was like, oh, wow, this is something that I'm super excited about. I want it to be turnkey. And it actually ended up taking longer for her. She wasn't in a place where she could hire a sales team, which, by the way, there's a sales system literally that you can turnkey, and you can even hire. Most of our clients don't want to sell this themselves, but she wasn't really in a position to do that. And so she kind of burned out. And in the end of it, she was in one of our programs called Amplify, and she's just lovely, and she's so sweet. She's like, I've learned so much. In the end of it, she ended up closing a $50,000 licensing deal literally in her last week in the program. And she was so happy about that, but she wasn't prepared for this. This is next level scaling. Yeah. Next level scaling it could be simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy. And is this something that's important enough to you and your business that you want to do that?
I could not agree. I could not agree more with that sentiment, because if we want change, we have to change. And sometimes the mismanagement of saying, well, is that the type of change I want to make? And so the fact that we're having that here on the front end is like super, super, super helpful. So can you share a story or experience of somebody who say like, they have like a $1,000 offer? Because I think that people might be watching this and saying, yeah, but my course or my training or this group coaching or whatever the system is less than 1,000. And then they were able to license it in a big way.
Yeah, actually, many of my clients, their average price is $297 or $500 for their program. It doesn't have to be a huge program. So I'll share a story here in a second, but let me say that when we're licensing into corporations, they're busy. They have all these initiatives that, frankly, I don't even know. I've never worked in a corporation. I don't understand. They're, bringing new things in and they have new trainings they have to do all the time. And if we approach them with a huge program that we would charge $10K for example, sometimes those take a long time to close, if not closing at all, because of the fact they say, this is too much. We can't fit in your huge Disneyland basically into our sales team. And so some of these smaller trainings are actually the ones that we bring into companies first.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so in this case, I have so many examples of this. We can even go back to the communications that sold into the nonprofit. Her program was $995 and her first licensing deal was $53,000 on that.
Okay. So what happened? Have you ever intercepted a client who's tried licensing before? Or like, what are the common mistakes that people make when they begin their licensing journey?
Right. All the time. Because we're entrepreneurs. So we really want to do things ourselves first before we have to hire somebody or ask for help. And so there are a couple really huge mistakes and some heartbreaking. So first of all, most people say, April, I want to have sales conversations first to see if there's interest, which completely makes sense. Even with licensing, we sell it before we build it, by the way. So we don't ever spend time to build anything, which I'm happy to dig on later. But in many cases, people want to go out and they want to have these sales conversations. Here's the problem with getting too far in these conversations is it becomes licensing, offer, or model design by committee. It's like if you ever designed a logo by committee and everybody's there and all of a sudden you have all these decision makers in the room and they're asking for, but can you do this? And can you do this? And what happens is these programs end up being so customized that two things have happened multiple times, either together or separately. Number one, they have accidentally given away their IP, meaning it becomes so customized that it kind of starts fitting into a work made for hire.
Yeah.
And they can't release it. So that is one problem. And then number two, they can't ever sell it again.
Right.
So that's totally, in my opinion, licensing is a time freedom and lifestyle freedom, as well as exploding the thought leadership business model. Anything that is completely customized doesn't necessarily, it might be great for somebody else, doesn't fit into my design for licensing, what I would want for myself. So those two things have happened. So it's accidentally giving away their IP, or I should say there is a third. One client was meeting with, I believe it was the state of Louisiana, and they were in these because they didn't know. They were in these conversations for sales, and it kept going and going and going. And 4 months later, just nothing happened. It just piddled out because there's no direction. There's no licensing plan. We need to have a licensing action plan. So what you need to have before you go to the table with any sales conversation, in my opinion, but I get it. We all want to start out, in fishing a little bit before we row the boat all the way out into the river, right? So what you need to have is you need to know your strategy, meaning you need to know what you want licensing to look like for you in the future. What does that mean? It means who you're willing to give it to, how much you're willing to give away, how is it branded? Many people ask me all the time, is white labeling licensing? That's one of 7 rules we get to set for licensing. If, for example, you white label something, nobody knows it's yours. You get no credit for that. So having those rules. So we need to have the rules set. We need to have the offer modeled on paper. So this is the productizing. I actually have a 7-step licensing process. Step 1 is planning and strategy. Step 2 is product. It's productizing it on paper. This means, what are you giving them? How is it being rolled out? How is it going to look? Are you offering any live support? Is there a certification? You get to lay that out based on what you've already created and based on the industry that you want to release it into. And then you get to set the rules, how long they can have it for, where does it live, whose LMS is it in, how is it branded? And then we have a base price. And so you want to have that base price, which of course people ask me all the time, April, how do I price this? I can't answer that question until we know who we're selling it to, how it's productized, what are your operational costs going to be for that and all of that process. So to answer your question, what is the biggest mistake? It's starting these conversations without having, I call it a licensing offer plan. It is a one-pager that's literally all of your decisions on paper. And these are your hard rules. Now, not that you can't customize it.
Right.
You can do anything you want. It's your company. But if you don't go in with understanding, here you go, we have designed this. This is what we believe is going to be best practice for you. And we already know in the back it's going to work for us. This company doesn't know. I don't care who they are. I don't care how big this organization is. You would be surprised at organizations that also license other trainings that when they go in, they're not saying, okay, well, this is da-da-da, I already know I can get this for you. They just have absolutely no clue. So you need to go to the table with presenting, here you go, we've done the work, we've done this before. This is also how we close deals faster. You go in, I've been there, done this. This is how we know it's going to work. This is how we've proposed the rollout. How does this look for you guys? You have to be able to do that in that initial conversation in order to move it forward. Otherwise, it becomes a hot mess and either doesn't close or becomes, super customized and never rolls forward, or you end up giving away something for free.
Okay, so this show, we're always about the business of the business. And so I was excited to speak to you about licensing. But when we take a look at your business, how is your business structured in terms of what it is you teach?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? So my husband and I own 5 companies.
Okay.
So with that being said, my licensing business is actually in another one of my consulting companies that nobody even knows exists. So I am one of the creators of the parent coaching industry, the baby planning industry, back in 2008, wrote the scope of practice for the maternity concierge industry. And so all of my programs are licensed under that. It's my courses, my trainings, my business. I have programs in hospitals, and I actually sub-license my content to other coaches who now have content from my programs in corporate benefits programs. So many places, honestly, I'm just not actually sure. I'm not actually sure it's so down the road. So I have the licensing side of my business, and that is through Baby Planner Inc. is the name of that company. And so after I started licensing, I did that starting in 2008, and it created so much freedom. I should say this too. I started licensing not because I wanted to be the end all be all in this space. It's because I had a son with medical issues and I needed to have time. We always do something, we think it's based on, some great goal. It's really what we need first, we fix. And so then it gave me a lot of time, and I became an environmental nonprofit founder and played in the dirt for a long time. And then I thought, I want to go back to business strategy and consulting. So I launched my company now, and that I have now, actually in 2012, which is the Sweet Life company. And in this company, it's all business consulting and strategy.
And so what are your offers? How do people work with you?
Yeah, so we have a program called License to Scale, and that teaches those 4 steps like I was talking about, the plan, product, rules, and pricing. It's amazing. But most people go beyond that, and they want support with sales, and so they work with us in a program that lasts a year. But most of our clients actually have been in there for a long period of time, much longer, for a year, and that's called Amplify. And then I also provide private advisory for a lot of different businesses with tons of content. So I'm a strategic advisor for certain 9-figure organizations. I mean, we're talking content that you and I, we would sit here and we could unpack their content for the next 10 years. We need a licensing plan for all of it. So those are the 3 ways. Yeah.
So currently right now, there's like a three arms of an offer, and it goes up with accessibility and time spent with you, depending on the offer suite.
That's correct.
Wow. I love that. How big is your team?
7.
Wow.
I know. I am in this place. I will tell you, I'm always like super transparent. I have to duplicate me.
Okay.
Really. I'm in this place going, okay, we have so many people.
Was there ever a point though that you didn't feel that way? Was there ever a point, or did you always?
Well, it was more that I didn't want to. I've never been one of those people. I know what I like. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. I don't want a big team. I've never wanted any of that. And so I've left a lot of money on the table for a lot of years. I travel 40 weeks a year with my boys, and that's my choice. And so it was fine. I never really wanted that. And now all of a sudden, I'm in a new season of my life. I'm at 3 weeks in, empty nester, and I'm realizing that a lot more people need help with licensing. And I think that is just the biggest aha still from realizing in 2020 that how did nobody else know about this? It still shocks me. And I have attorneys that are in our program because they don't understand the structuring side of licensing. And I'm like, okay, great, you go do the legal side, but now I'm realizing I do want to help more because I feel like that's what I'm called to do.
I couldn't think of a better way to tie this up and serve so many people, because we always talk about the business of the business because we learned so much by watching. And so I'm going to repeat back what I have heard and taken from you. The business of the business as it currently stands, what we're here to talk about, is a 3-armed offer. And as you go up the product suite, you're having more time and accessibility, and that price tag increases. But the reason why we're talking here now is we're teaching and opening people's eyes that there is a world beyond just the content you're teaching. There is a world beyond static launches of $1,000 offer that could potentially at one point turn into $56,000 on average. And most people, like myself, didn't even know that licensing IP or even selling it was an option until 2022. That's why my mind was blown, and I followed you and I said, I don't understand how this is happening. And I continued to consume your content and learn. And I asked the question of, how did people do it wrong? Hand raise. I have done it wrong. Like, I've done it wrong. And I didn't know I was doing it wrong. I was like, look at all this money. This is so great. And except for the fact that I was creating something custom that was white labeled by another organization, which is fine. Lesson learned. It was great for what it was, but hot dang, that was a very expensive lesson as I'm looking at right now. I thought I was compensated well until I realized, girl, they got a bargain because I created content for them. Crazy, April. This is crazy. I am so thankful you came on the show because you schooled me. And I think that you opened people's eyes to what is beyond just a digital offer to a business that allows people, everyday single moms from Balboa Island, California, to expand into school districts and step into their purpose and change people's lives. For people who want to go deeper with you, your website is licenseyourgenius.com.
Yes.
That's where they can find out a lot more about what it is you do. You also offer a ton of free resources that people can download and just to get to know you better. And they can find that on your site, correct?
Yes, they can.
Great. Is there anything else that I left that needed to be said?
I think that we need to say that people, I believe we're given work beyond our initial audience. I believe we're given a genius to expand the reach of your work, that there are people in other countries or other places or other industries that might not ever be exposed to what you do, but they really, really need you. And licensing is the fastest way to get it into their hands without you having to be the one to do it. So just thinking so much about what you've created and what you've stayed up at night and what you've dreamed in your head and how many more people beyond anything you've ever imagined it can help.
How many more people beyond your wildest imagination that it could help? April Beach, thank you for being here. licenseyourgenius.com. I appreciate you. Thank you 1,000 times over.
Thank you so much for having me.